My parents wanted me to look presentable for my brother's wedding. What they got was a glow-up so shocking, it threatened to eclipse the groom, and they absolutely hated it. You see, from the moment I could remember, I was the fat kid. In kindergarten, while other kids were just figuring out who they were, my size had already singled me out. As I grew, so did the weight, becoming a constant, undeniable reminder that I was different. High school wasn't much better, and college felt like a replay. While others explored new identities, I remained trapped in that familiar one. Overweight, often struggling, and always on the outside looking in. Being bigger wasn't easy. It painted a target on my back for relentless teasing, mockery, and comments that chipped away at my self-worth. I was the punchline, the one left out of games, parties, and gatherings. It felt like I was watching everyone else live their lives from behind an invisible barrier I couldn't cross. The constant bullying created deep insecurities, making me feel undeserving of kindness or friendship. So I did what any introverted kid would do. I found refuge in books. Books didn't judge me, they didn't ridicule. I became the nerd, and honestly, compared to everything else, I didn't mind it one bit. My younger brother Brandon was my complete opposite. Just a year my junior, he was born with this effortless charisma. A magnetic personality that drew people to him like moths to a flame. He'd walk into a room and instantly have everyone laughing, smiling, completely enchanted. He didn't just make friends easily. He seemed to naturally become the center of every social universe, the golden child everyone gravitated towards. And despite our differences, I adored him. I took my role as his big brother seriously, feeling fiercely protective whenever he needed me. When he started high school with me, I was thrilled. At first, being Brandon's older brother made me feel proud, like I had a special place in his world. But as he got older, things shifted. He started noticing our differences, how differently we were treated. I was the bookish introvert. He was vibrant, popular, and quickly found his place among the cool crowd. And then he became aware of my quirks, my insecurities, the very things that made others see me as uncool. Once Brandon made new friends, he started to drift away. That hurt deeply. It bothered me to see my own sibling view me as someone lesser. But then it escalated. He didn't just ignore me. He started joining in with the very people who made me feel like an outcast. If we crossed paths in the hallways, he and his friends would seize the chance to humiliate me, teasing me in front of everyone, or worse, pulling stunts like trying to trip me as I walked by with my lunch tray. All for a laugh. It felt like I was losing him, not just to new friends, but to the same cruel behavior I'd endured for so long. I was constantly on guard, trying to dodge not just my classmates' mockery, but now the humiliation coming from my own brother. And at home? When his friends came over, they'd burst into my room without knocking, laughing and pointing, calling me geek and fatty. I felt like a zoo animal, their source of entertainment, an outsider in my own home. I tried to talk to my parents, hoping they'd understand how much Brandon's behavior affected me, but they always dismissed it. They'd smile, wave it off, saying it was just siblings bonding. That Brandon was just playing. They assured me it was harmless, even telling me I should loosen up and not take everything so seriously. They reminded me I was older, I should be more patient, more resilient. So not only did I endure years of bullying, but my concerns were constantly invalidated by my own parents. I felt utterly alone, as if no one in my own family truly saw or understood the depth of my pain. The only time my parents truly noticed me was because of my grades. Academics came naturally, and I consistently secured top marks. It was the one area where I felt superior, the only way I could make them proud, the only aspect of my life they seemed to genuinely care about. They loved to boast about my achievements to friends and family, painting me as the family scholar, as if my grades were proof of their parenting success. But Brandon despised the comparisons. He wasn't an academic overachiever, nor did he want to be, but their constant reminders of my achievements left him seething with resentment. I could feel his frustration, his anger, and I guess that's why he did what he did. Sometimes Brandon would try to sabotage my hard work. He'd sneak into my room in the middle of the night, stealing my homework, sometimes right before a major assignment was due. I'd wake up to panic, frantically searching, growing more desperate by the minute. And there he'd be, watching from the doorway with a smirk, relishing every second of my worry. To him it was a small victory, a way to knock me down, to remind me I wasn't untouchable. He knew exactly how important my grades were, how much of my self-worth was tied to them, and he took pleasure in disrupting that. I only found out about him stealing my assignments years later, when he drunkenly confessed one night. Over time my relationship with Brandon softened, though we were far from close. You could say we matured, and some of the bitter edges faded. But that deep unspoken bond siblings often share? It never fully developed between us. After college I moved out, built a life in a new city with an exciting job and fresh opportunities. I didn't see my family much, our interactions dwindling to a few calls or texts. So last year when I planned a summer visit home, I was genuinely looking forward to it. It had been a while since we'd all gathered, and I was eager to reconnect. But things didn't go quite as I'd hoped. Our family lunch started pleasantly enough. Everyone seemed happy to see me, and for a while it felt like old times. Then Brandon dropped a bomb. His engagement. None of us saw it coming. He held out his hand, showing off a stunning ring, and I felt a genuine happiness for him, proud that he'd found someone he loved. But almost as soon as the congratulations died down, Brandon turned to me. He asked what I'd been up to, and as I started sharing about my fulfilling work in life, he cut me off. "I can't help but say this," he began, a smirk playing on his lips. "But why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is really that great, shouldn't you have lost the weight by now?" His words hit me like a physical slap. Dredging up old insecurities I thought I'd finally moved past. The room felt uncomfortably silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting. I tried to shrug it off, to laugh awkwardly, but then my parents joined in. They started bashing me, talking about how I was still fat and unmarried, how they were worried I'd never have children. I was so utterly humiliated. My accomplishments, my proud job, the independent life I'd built. None of it seemed to matter. My weight and my lack of a traditional family were all they could focus on. Their remarks cut deeper than I expected. I'd spent years growing into myself, building confidence and independence. But in that moment I felt like the same insecure, awkward teenager, desperate for my family's acceptance. My parents then praised Brandon for getting engaged before me, making me feel like the lesser child, successful maybe, but never quite enough. What was meant to be a joyful reunion was quickly turning into a painful reminder of old wounds. I felt more like an outsider than ever. Brandon kept pushing. "So, when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a girlfriend?" He was clearly trying to mock me. My parents latched on, agreeing it was high time for me to find someone, pointing out how Brandon, being younger, was settling down while I was wasting my life away. I tried to push back, explaining I loved my life, that I found fulfillment in my career and independence. My job paid well, I was passionate about my work, and why did I have to find a partner or have children? I was content. But my words didn't land. My dad especially gave me a pointed look. "What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" It was as if he couldn't fathom happiness existing outside of their version of a perfect life. I felt that familiar sting of being misunderstood, of my choices being undervalued. This was my family, the people who were supposed to know me best, yet they were so focused on a version of happiness that wasn't my own. I had come home looking for connection and warmth, but found judgment and taunts instead. Then Brandon delivered the final blow. He expected me to at least have a +1 by the time his wedding rolled around. He didn't want people thinking his brother was some old miserable man all alone. The comment stung. I just shook my head and said I'd try. That's when my parents matter-of-factly told me that since Brandon's wedding was almost a year away, even if I couldn't find a partner, I should at least try to lose weight and look more presentable. They suggested it might make it easier for me to attract a partner. Brandon readily agreed. I sat there, stunned and ashamed, feeling an ache I hadn't felt in years. How could my family talk to me this way? Did I really deserve their cruel words just because I was overweight? Was I supposed to have no feelings? I was a normal human being. I'd even dated women who liked me just the way I was. Yet my parents and Brandon were making it seem like my weight prevented me from finding love. I wanted to defend myself, to tell them how hurtful their words were. But I felt frozen, transported back to those painful high school days. I hated how casually my family could bring up my biggest insecurities and not care about how they made me feel. So I sat there holding in my pain and let the conversation drift. After that visit, when I got back home, I threw myself into losing weight with a determination I hadn't known I possessed. It started as a way to prove something to my family, but over time it became personal. I joined a gym, committed to a strict diet, and hired a personal trainer. My trainer, a former overweight person himself, was a lifesaver, guiding me through a customized journey, pushing me but also reminding me to give myself grace. This time it clicked. The pounds steadily came off and I felt lighter. Not just physically but emotionally too. For the first time I felt and looked different. My confidence skyrocketed. I used to think losing weight wouldn't change that much, but trust me, it did. People viewed me differently. Strangers were kinder, more attentive. Friends and colleagues treated me with a new respect. It was a validation I'd never experienced. It was as if I'd suddenly become visible in a way I hadn't been before. With my new body came a new sense of style. I changed my entire wardrobe, filled it with clothes I'd only dreamed of wearing, and even got a complete hair makeover. A bold, modern style I would have been too shy to attempt before. Maybe it sounds extravagant, but I'd never felt this good. I look in the mirror now and barely recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself I never knew could exist. I'm proud of how far I've come. Not just for the weight loss, but for the confidence and self-assurance that came with it. Anyway, Brandon's wedding was now 2 weeks away. My family asked me to fly down for lunch next week to discuss final plans. But I didn't want to go. I didn't want them to taunt me again to make me feel small, not after I finally started feeling good about myself. I didn't even want to go to Brandon's wedding after the way they treated me. But I knew if I didn't, they'd be furious lecturing me about family being family, and how I should be there for Brandon's big day. So, I asked the internet if I shouldn't attend my brother's wedding. By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. The reaction I got was incredible. Some of your suggestions were honestly hilarious. I couldn't believe you guys were actually encouraging me to show up and mess with my brother. Growing up as the fat kid really messed with my self-esteem. I struggled with self-doubt for so long, always feeling like I wasn't good enough. But reading all your comments? That was a game changer. It was like you helped me see myself in a whole new way. And I started feeling more confident than ever. In fact, I seriously started thinking about showing up to my family's lunch and surprising everyone. They hadn't seen me in so long, and since I wasn't on social media, they had no idea about the weight I'd lost. It would definitely be interesting to see their reaction. Alright Reddit, you guys are not ready for this update. Grab your popcorn because this is about to get good. I decided to fly down to attend my family's lunch, just like I said I would. I genuinely thought that when they saw me, they would be proud of the transformation. After all, they were the ones who pushed me toward it in the first place. Surely, they'd be thrilled to see the positive changes and finally acknowledge the hard work I'd put in. The moment I stepped inside my parents' home, their jaws literally dropped. They stared, stunned, almost as if they couldn't quite believe I was the same person. After a moment they stammered, asking if it was really me. I gave them warm hugs, pleased by their reaction. They complimented my appearance repeatedly, telling me how handsome I looked, how they couldn't believe it. But when Brandon arrived, things took a different turn. He didn't even notice me at first, ignoring me as if I were invisible, much like he'd done so many times in the past. But when I stood up to greet him, he did a double take, his eyes widening in surprise. He let out a strange, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pressing his fingers against my stomach wide-eyed, as if he needed proof I'd actually lost all that weight. My parents laughed at his reaction, telling him they couldn't believe it either at first. As we settled into lunch, the conversation revolved around my transformation. Brandon and my parents peppered me with questions about how I'd managed it, marveling repeatedly at how different I looked. There was a sense of disbelief in their voices, as if they'd never truly thought I could look any other way. Brandon especially kept repeating how he never expected me to change so drastically. When I first asked you to lose weight, he remarked, I never expected you to look this handsome. I didn't even know you had that jawline and those wrists beneath all that fat. I paused, trying to keep my composure, and gave him a smile before reminding him, Brandon, I've always been handsome. Losing weight just enhanced my features. But Brandon argued it wasn't just that. He actually had the nerve to ask, did you have some surgeries done on yourself? Because there's no way you look this good by yourself. I could feel my blood start to boil. The audacity. To think I needed surgeries when I'd worked so incredibly hard. I looked him straight in the eye and said, wow, Brandon, it's amazing that you think that little of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love. Something you might want to try sometime. Brandon's face shifted from surprise to pure annoyance, but I didn't care. Felt good to finally speak up. Before he could respond, my parents jumped in, trying to smooth things over in their own messed up way. You shouldn't be offended, my mom said. The three of us have just never seen you look this way before. Honestly, you look even more handsome now than Brandon does, and he's the one getting married. Brandon looked even more furious after Mom's comment. I simply ignored him and focused on my lunch, letting my brother stew in his anger. Then my mom chimed in again. You know, I was thinking maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I think you'd look even better with your natural shade. This blonde look makes you stand out too much. Maybe you should just go back to your old look. Brandon and my dad immediately agreed. My dad added that Brandon was always the blonde son of the family, and I was the brunette. He suggested it would be a good idea for me to go back to my original hair color, as it might make me look more like myself. Hearing their words, I was taken aback. I suddenly felt like the three of them were ganging up on me, trying to put me down. My hairstylist had suggested the blonde because it suited my skin tone and face better. It had nothing to do with trying to stand out or overshadow my brother. I could understand why Brandon might be jealous, but why were my parents so unhappy with me? They were the ones who wanted me to look presentable for their darling son's wedding, but now that I had, they couldn't accept the person I'd become. Instead of celebrating my growth, they were finding reasons to demean me. Finally I snapped. What's your problem? I asked, my voice rising. Why can't I be blonde also? Does my brother own that color or something? I paused, frustrated. No, he doesn't. I can be blonde or brunette. It's my choice. Why does it even matter to you so much? I couldn't understand why they were so fixated on me going back to the way I used to be, as if my appearance needed to fit into who I was before. My mom scoffed, arguing that I was knowingly trying to sabotage Brandon's upcoming wedding by trying to stand out. Brandon chimed in, saying that with my weight loss I was already going to stand out. So did I really need to take his hair color too? My dad, as usual, sided with them, telling me I was being difficult for no reason, and that as Brandon's brother, I should be more understanding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't about stealing anything. It was about me having the freedom to choose what made me feel good. But instead of supporting that, they were all focused on how it might make Brandon uncomfortable. You know what? I said, the words almost burning as they left my mouth. I'm done with this. The three of you are so caught up in your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. The truth is, I've always been amazing just the way I am, but none of you ever saw it. Now, after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it's never enough. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. They just stared, but it didn't matter. I was done holding back. Since you all have so much to say about me, I continued, my voice cold, I think it's time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you love to give me. I turned to my mom first. Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes and your lips. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth, and honestly it's just disgusting to me. Dad? I began, my tone sharp. You're bald. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair? I saw his face tighten, but I wasn't done yet. Lastly, I turned to Brandon. And you? Don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling, but now with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours. Brandon's face turned bright red with embarrassment, and he looked like he was about to burst out crying. I then lifted my glass, finished my drink in one go, and gave them a smirk before walking out, leaving them all shocked and speechless. I said what I had to say. I couldn't believe those words had actually left my mouth, but I didn't regret it one bit. After years of being the subject of their criticism, they deserved to be humiliated like that. After that lunch, I flew straight back home. I did not want to stay behind and attend Brandon's wedding. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with voicemails and messages from my parents and Brandon. They've been calling me rude and foul-mouthed for the way I talk to them. My dad even insisted that I fly down and attend Brandon's wedding, saying it won't look good to his in-laws if I'm not there. Hey, so I ended up skipping Brandon's wedding, thanks to all of your ideas. Instead of going back home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu staycation at a 5-star resort. It was honestly one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy. No drama, no pressure, just pure relaxation. I pampered myself with a spa day, binged my favorite shows, and even explored some new spots in the city I've been wanting to check out. I've also gone ahead and blocked my family. I'm tired of being bullied by them and just want to stay away from all the toxicity and drama right now. I'm focused on taking care of myself. It's strange how sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who try to keep you trapped in the past, refusing to see the person you've become. But finally, I'm free. Have you ever had to draw a line with family to protect your own peace? Or faced a situation where your growth was seen as a threat? Tell me in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts.